Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Today I want to talk mainly about open source. So I won't talk a lot about the technology itself, but more about why open source is so important and why it's so important in artificial intelligence. Before I talk, how many people here know the Linux Foundation, have heard of the Linux Foundation? How many people here use Linux? All right, I knew at a conference like this, there's a lot of Linux users. The Linux Foundation is more than Linux. Today, we are home to the most critical software technology in the world. Whether it's technologies like OpenStack and Kubernetes that are used to run all the major public cloud service providers around the world, whether here in China, Alibaba Cloud, Tencent, Huawei, Baidu, or in the United States, Microsoft, Google, Amazon. All of these service providers run on cloud technology that comes from the Linux Foundation. In artificial intelligence, we're home to technologies like PyTorch and VLLM, as well as thousands of other technologies in a host of different industries, automotive, telecommunications, film, and more. At the Linux Foundation, what we do is bring together the world's industry to collaborate and make markets using open source software. And we've done that over and over again. Linux today runs the vast majority of the world's computing systems. OpenStack and Kubernetes run the cloud. RISC-V is an open source semiconductor instruction set that is the fastest growing semiconductor technology in the world. I already talked about PyTorch. Node.js is a ubiquitous web building block. All of these are homed at the Linux Foundation. But today I don't want to talk just about the Linux Foundation. I want to talk about why open source is so important in the area of artificial intelligence. This year was a big, big year for open source AI. DeepSeek was the cause of that open source moment. In January, a small company here in China released an open source model that shocked the world. The day that DeepSeek came out, NVIDIA stock dropped 17%. It showed that there are really no competitive moats when it comes to building large language models. Now, don't worry too much about NVIDIA. Just yesterday, they became the world's most valuable company again, so they have, in fact, recovered. But what was important is that the world woke up to the fact that open source is going to be critical for artificial intelligence. Sam Altman, in February, reflected that maybe OpenAI is on the wrong side of history when it comes to open source. He went further to promise that OpenAI will be delivering an open source large language model in the near future. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, is dedicated to an open source AI future. And Kai-Fu Lee has stated that open source is the clear winner in AI in 2025. And of course, DeepSeek has proven here in China that there are no moats. And the innovation continues. Today, open source LLMs are almost on the same level as closed AI frontier models in evals. Many of those open source LLMs come from organizations here in China, whether it's QN3 or DeepSeek. So the question is, how did this happen? How did this small organization in China, DeepSeek, come out of nowhere and release this incredibly performant model under open source? Well, for anybody who's been coming to China for a very long time, I first came here in the early 90s, in 1991, you would know that in China, open source is not a new concept. In fact, in China, organizations and the government have been betting on open source for a long time. Whether in the early 90s, where government and industry were looking for open source alternatives to incumbent technologies like Microsoft Windows, or the 2000s through 2020, where open source was invested in by industry here in China, large hyperscalers, companies like Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and Huawei. Those companies employees, engineers became leading contributors to global open source initiatives. In 2020 till now, China has heavily invested in open source, not just in contributions and new releases of open source software, but in government policy that supports and encourages open source sharing, and investment by both industry and the government in open source collaboration. Now, of course, China's not alone here. In the United States, the technology industry also bet on open source a long, long time ago. In the 90s, companies like IBM used open source software to compete with incumbent competitors and to create higher level innovation. In the 1990s through the 2010s, there was billions of dollars of investment in open source companies. In the cloud booms of the 2010 to the 2020s, almost every cloud service provider in the world built the vast majority of their cloud infrastructure together using open source software. And of course, today we're seeing that same explosion in artificial intelligence in the US. Now, there's a cautionary tale here for organizations who think they can go it on their alone and oppose open source and stay closed. In the United States, we see a laundry list of companies that fought against open source technology, tried to hoard and control technology, and ended up either being consumed by another company or going out of business. Even companies like Microsoft, who early opposed open source and Linux, had to radically pivot to embrace open source technology as part of their transformation. Microsoft today is the leading contributor to the vast majority of critical open source software. That is a massive change from their opposition to open source just in the early 2000s. So the question I want to ask everyone here is, why is it that open source is so powerful? Why is it that open source is leading to these incredible breakthroughs that you just saw from BAAI? Well, I'll tell you why. Because open source is incredibly valuable financially. Harvard Business School recently published a study measuring the economic value of open source code. If the world had to go purchase the open source software that industry uses to create all of its technology products and services, the demand side value, the ability to purchase it, would be worth $9 trillion US. A stunning figure. Think of it this way. Think of modern application development like a hamburger, where a developer chooses an open source framework. They use open source libraries, open source components that are freely available for anyone to use in public, and they write only themselves the custom code that they need for their customers. What that does is it saves 70% of the development cost for any modern technology product or service. Today, this is the de facto way that software technology gets developed. We will not go backwards from this moment. In fact, open source usage is accelerating. And remember this, that open source software itself, just publishing code, isn't good enough to really take advantage of that $9 trillion in value. The world's most critical open source projects is not just good software, good code, it needs good governance. You see, for fierce competitors like Google and Microsoft or Alibaba and Tencent to collaborate, on the same software, they need a neutral owner of that software. They need a way to make decisions about that software together. They need to be able to promote that software so more developers come in and contribute and use that software. That kind of governance is very critical and something that I'm now starting to see emerge here in China. Not just good software, but good decision-making, good collective ownership of software. I see organizations all over the world coming together, not just at the Linux Foundation, but at other organizations, making decisions neutrally and together. That process is accelerating, not decelerating. So let's talk about the economics of AI and open source. So open source AI economics, and why it is so important to continue to embrace open source development in artificial intelligence. Open source drives innovation faster. When DeepSeek R1 was released, almost immediately, hundreds of different versions of DeepSeek were released on Hugging Face as well, all leveraging the breakthroughs that DeepSeek created, but then adding their own innovation on top of that and making everyone better. And this continues to accelerate as every new frontier model comes out or new forms of AI technologies adjacent to LLM technology. A recent study by McKinsey showed that in enterprise technologists, 76% of organizations who are deploying AI expect to deploy AI, open source AI in their enterprise in the next several years. This trend continues to go. But here's the part that I really want you all to pay attention to, which is why open source is so important. What people really want from artificial intelligence is something we talked about all morning: drug discovery, autonomous vehicles, robots that can serve us a healthy hamburger or help automate a factory. You see, it's the applications that are created using AI where most of the value is created. All of the infrastructure that enable those amazing applications can be a shared asset. And when it's all shared, it pushes the cost of building those AI applications down and lower, and it accelerates the creation of new applications, new self-driving cars, new robotic systems, more medical breakthroughs. At the Linux Foundation, what we want to see is as much open source infrastructure components as you can possibly have so that application developers and users of artificial intelligence can create amazing applications as quickly as possible. Those that fear the commoditization of lower levels of technology are generally the weakest in this ecosystem, but those that are fearless about open sourcing their technology tend to innovate at the highest level. So finally, I want to conclude with what we're seeing in the United States in open source around AI. And that is, of course, the rise of Agentic AI, which we talked a little bit about this morning. Now, you know how I just told you how at the infrastructure layer, open source pushes costs down, drives innovation up to the application level. But when we talk about Agentic AI, there's actually a level on top of that around the AI agents. And here's what we're seeing emerge in the United States as the modern Agentic AI stack. What we see clearly is the emergence of protocols like MCP. We're seeing the emergence of new open registries that help people discover and validate and secure AI agents. We're seeing a whole new ecosystem of MCP servers and clients that people are collectively developing in order to create new agent experiences, new agent orchestrators. If you haven't started looking at the activity around MCP and that ecosystem, this is something definitely worth looking at right now. Because what AI agent technology does is it hooks the intelligence of a frontier model to something that's useful to an enterprise or a service, and it's that last mile that really matters in creating these rich applications and these useful AI agents. And what we will see is the same thing that we've seen in every use of open source. Cost will go down, security, reliability will go up, and innovation will rise rapidly. We see all the major labs embracing technology like MCP, a host of new open source initiatives, A2A from Google, Agency from Cisco, and a variety of others are emerging in the United States. All of these are worth watching. What I want to leave you with today is one thought. First, open source accelerates innovation. Even though open source is free and publicly available for everyone to use, it actually increases economic opportunity because it puts this technology in more people's hands. But the real secret to open source is the global collaboration that happens completely in the open for anyone to participate in and anyone to use. 33 years ago, Linus Torvalds, who was living in Helsinki, Finland, open-sourced the Linux kernel. And he became the most successful software developer in the world over 30 years. Linux now still is maintained by Linus Torvalds, and it is the most widely used software on Earth. But the interesting thing about Linus Torvalds is all he needed to participate in open source was a computer and a connection to the internet. And what I see every day working at the Linux Foundation, where millions of developers work together on those critical projects you saw, is that none of us know in the world where the next Linus Torvalds is going to come from. The next Linus Torvalds could be in this room today. And all that brilliant engineer needs to do is to access the incredible technology that is being released into open source, modify it, change it, become a leader, and we may see the next Linus Torvalds come from right in this room, creating incredible technology that will be good to all of us. So let's make sure that we keep open source open, that we keep open source a cross-border global collaboration that's free for anyone from anywhere to participate at any time. Because you never know where the next Linux or the next Linus Torvalds will come from. Thank you very much.